fact, we will fire it up here. Is that everybody? Okay. That wasn't very convincing, but I will now call to order the THPRD Board of Directors meeting for October 8th, 2025. Jessica, would you please call roll?
RB Minor. Tia Ping.
Here.
Alfredo Moreno.
Here.
Miles Palacios.
Here.
Pradnya Patel.
All right. We do not have any proposed action resulting from executive session. So we are very glad to move on to 4 and like to welcome once again Equity and Engagement Manager Lulu Ballesteros.
Good evening, everyone. Ooh. Yeah. Thank you for having me here tonight. We have a note related to Indigenous Peoples Day. THPRD continues to take an intentional approach to building relationships with Native and Indigenous partners. Rather than moving too quickly or acting performatively, THPRD is prioritizing in presence, listening, and authentic connection before engaging in formal partnerships or projects. Efforts include currently outreach and relationship building with reconnecting with NAYA staff we've worked with in the past for Talking Walls, people like Jenny Sanchez from Beaverton School District's American Indian Alaska Native Education Program, working currently with artists Toma Villa, Patrick Price, and Rudy Redstone Serna through the Talking Walls project, having conversations on revitalizing murals at Greenway Park, and exploring interpretive signage opportunities in collaboration with the Signage Development and Nature and Trails teams. We also have ongoing collaboration with Indigenous-led groups, such as Johnny Martinez from Mitotistli, the lead of Mexica New Year, Dia de los Muertos at Conestoga, and the drumming practice that takes place at parks. Also, you met Maria Luisa last month from Xochicalli Wellness and Art. She came to this meeting and also identifies as an Indigenous individual. Continued partnership with Volunteer Services and Tamra Russell from the Confederate Tribes of the Siletz Indians, including participation in community resource fairs and exploration of future engagement opportunities. We also have been rekindling relationships with Mayan artist Pedro Parra, who collaborated with Conestoga a couple of years ago for a set of activities. So at this stage, staff across multiple departments are intentionally showing up by attending events, learning, engaging in dialogue without the expectation of immediate outcomes or deliverables. The focus remains on trust building, mutual respect, and consistency. Sometimes partners are available, sometimes they're not, and that is okay. As staff, volunteers, and staff volunteers and some folks from advisory committees have shared in the past, relationship building moves at the pace of trust. Kudos to Bruce for catching that one. And on this Indigenous Peoples Day, the Board of Directors and THPRD as a whole recognizes and honors the significance of this day with the seriousness and respect it deserves. We reaffirm our shared commitment to continue this work, to connect with more communities, learn from one another, and together build the systemic changes needed within our region and beyond.
Thank you, Lulu. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, Ann Johnson, Recreation Manager, speak on the proclamation and show a video Thrive staff put together for our Lights On After School Day. Hello.
Good evening, everyone. Members of the board, I'm Ann Johnson, the Recreation Manager. I'd like to introduce the Lights On After School proclamation. Lights On After School initiative is a nationwide recognition of the important role that after-school programs play in providing safe and fun learning spaces for kids to gather after their school day. THPRD programs hold open house events in October to highlight these programs for families. THPRD currently has 307 participants enrolled in our after-school programs at 5 sites throughout the district. This year, we asked Conestoga Recreation and Aquatic Center's Thrive program to help with reading the Lights On proclamation. So thank you again for recognizing our after-school programs this month. And we have a short video to show.
THPRD stands family committed to free after-school programs. After-school programs provide safe and engaging learning experiences that help children realize their full potential and also support working families by ensuring their children are safe and productive when they are let out of their classrooms. And after-school programs engage families, schools, and communities. Partner in advance the blind fire of our children. Whereas THPRD Thrive After School program provides critical support for the growth of well-being and youth and offers new experiences and opportunities that help young people learn and grow. And whereas Lights On After School, the national celebration held this year on October 23rd, promotes the importance of quality after-school programs. Whereas nationally, nearly 25 million families report that they would like to enroll in the child and after-school program. If only available in 5,000 programs, four are waiting to get in, and whereas after-school programs across the country are facing operating challenges so severe that they are forced to consider closing their doors and turning off their lights, and whereas the THPRD exclusively adores Lights On After School, is committed to interactive after-school programs and activities that ensure that the lights stay on and the doors stay open for all children after school. Therefore, the Board of Directors of Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District now does hereby declare Thursday, October 23rd, 2025 at
As you can see, the children can tell the story better than any of us can. So thank you for recognizing us.
Thank you both for being up here and being here with us. That reminds me of how we used to read those proclamations ourselves here. So, not bad. Jessica, do we have anybody signed up tonight? Well, they will miss me reading this long spiel, so I'll skip it this time. We are going to move on to board time, agenda item number 6. Who would like to lead us off?
I'm happy to kick us off. I just have a couple things to share today. One is that next week I get to go to fiduciary committee training. I'm so excited. Very much so looking forward to that and looking forward to our next fiduciary committee meeting, which I believe I got a notification that it's this next month, right? I think I got that from you today. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is, as you folks know, I am our Washington County Special District Representative for Metro's Policy Advisory Committee. And I attended last month's meeting, I believe it's always the fourth Wednesday of the month, where we had Dr. Leslie Keene come in. I believe some of us in this district might know her because I got to chat with her a little bit after the fact of our session. She works in the world of climate and carbon policy. And is a professor at Portland State University, but she highlighted that she was very aware of our Black and Green program. And we got to have a really great conversation about the impact that program has in our community. And just really wanted to highlight that it's always exciting to hear outside of our district when we do awesome things like that here, that it is making ripples, and also really just bringing home the reality that we still need to continue to keep climate at the front of our mind as we continue to engage young people in our community, as well as those who are no longer young. But we will save that further conversation for later. But yes, it was really exciting, and I am just really thankful for all the work that we do here.
Thank you, Miles. Tia or Pranya? Pranya, you go.
Sorry. So I attended my first Parks and Recreation committee, which was a lot of fun. Although before being on the board, I was on the Parks and Facilities Committee. So Bruce was there. Uh, even though Greg is our point person, we had a lot of fun with Bruce. It was really interesting to see how the community members are engaged because we did talk about a construction project that is going to start on Barnes Road and how that's going to change our trail direction. And it was really good to see like people pulled up their maps and they were looking at which street, where the connection is. There was a lot of good input. We went over because we were kind of going through that. So I really saw like, even though it was a small group, we were really, really engaged and really good conversation and good feedback back to the team to follow up and ask questions as well. So that was really good. I already talked about my meeting this morning, so thank you. That's all I have.
Tia, anything?
Yes. Okay. Parks and Facilities met. It was my first meeting with them, and they're just a great bunch of very engaged community members. So I really love the energy. It's kind of funny how each of the advisories have different kind of cultures within them. They're not all the same when you sit at these meetings. So it was really fun getting to know them and watching them all talk. They had a presentation for a Oregon Department of Energy grant that we were applying, or THPRD is potentially applying for, and so they were looking for a letter of support, and they were all really engaged to the syntax of the letter that they were all going to sign off for. So it was great. They also discussed their challenge grant discussion and tried to pick a project. And then they also, which was an interesting conversation, created kind of like an attendance policy that keeps people accountable, yet is also welcoming. But so that was really nice that they were able to do that for themselves to make sure that they continue to have engaged members and are able to meet their quorums and all of that kind of stuff while still being open. I also started coaching second grade boys soccer again for the fall. And so I just want to thank staff. I know on the field at Terra Linda, it's supposed to be beautiful, but there were a couple ankle rolling potential holes. But as soon as I let somebody know, they were filled by the next practice. So thank you to staff for always being so on top of that to make sure our kids have places to play and run safely. So yeah, that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just a couple things from me. First, I just, even though we have kind of a lighter group tonight, I still just appreciate the work we do on the proclamations and the thoughtfulness. First, on the Indigenous Peoples Day, you know, indigeneity in Oregon and in North America it is so diverse. And I think Lulu was kind of hitting on that a little bit. You know, I think that's one thing. Just keep in mind that when we celebrate people, all the different experiences and viewpoints within that group of folks, and certainly we see that in the news and just in everybody's experience there. After school, I'm so proud of the work the district does. You know, I was thinking just about obviously my own kids and kind of that stuff, but growing up, you know, I had almost kind of forgotten, but like when I was about in the fourth grade, you know, my younger brother and I, growing up in Roseburg, Oregon, had an example of after school not done very well, and you know, whether it just wasn't offered or we just had to go to a private place, ended up being not the most moral place to be. And so I think of folks who have a public place in their community, in their neighborhood that they can trust to look after their kids while they work, just removes that stress. And you know, they're not trying to squeeze you to make a big fortune off the, not that anybody really does that, but it's just, I think that that work that we do there is just so important, and people can almost take it for granted, but it's such a big deal. I mean, it really is. And thank you for all the effort that it took to get those kids to volunteer and do the video. A real home run, you can let them know. So, Tualatin Hills Park Foundation had its fundraiser last month at the Jenkins Center. It was a beautiful day. We had Eliana Mason, who's a medalist in the Paralympic Games in goalball for the visually impaired. She did an awesome job as a speaker. We had about 60 people there. The aim of the gathering was really to kind of build some enthusiasm and awareness. Most of the 60 guests who joined had no prior experience with the foundation. So I think that's something that keeps the ball rolling. One person I met was very enthusiastic to learn how he might be on the board of trustees for the foundation. So just building that awareness as we start to do these new and interesting things. That was the point of the evening, and I thought we were able to achieve that very well. We had some peers from Beaverton School Board who were with us, and I think, as I think about after school, I think as we look at that, if there's anything, Doug, that as we go, that where we can strengthen our ties with BSD, or I think we're in a good position with some of the relationships that we have across all members of this board to be able to strengthen those bonds in lots of different ways. So, yep, all in all, a great event, and something the foundation can build on for sure. So, okay. I am going to close out our board time, and we're going to move on to number 7, consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion from somebody.
I will move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
All right, Jessica, would you please take the vote?
Pradna Patel. Miles Palacios.
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes.
Alfredo Moreno.
Yes. Okay, agenda item number 8. We are welcoming Bruce Barbarash for our strategic plan annual report. And he's there. I look up for my readers and he pops up.
Good evening, board members. I'm Bruce Barbarash, Sustainability Manager, and I'm here to talk to you about our strategic plan. Just to get everyone onto the same page, as a reminder, our strategic plan is a sort of distillation of our comprehensive plan, our 20-year vision, which was both of these plans were adopted in 22 or 23. And what I'm going to do tonight is just kind of talk you through where we are over the last year. And there we go. This is the second full year that we've done a strategic plan report. And one thing that was different about this year's reporting is our staff at the leadership level checked in every quarter to talk about what are you doing on the strategic plan? How's it going? How do we support each other? Which was really helpful to understand where we are and to keep it in our consciousness. One thing I'm really excited about is if we look on the left side of the screen, that's where we were last year. And if we look on the right side there, this is what we completed as of June of 2025. And the really big thing to note is the not started section. So staff increasingly are working on things from this 5-year chunk of our comprehensive plan, and we're really getting things going. The other piece that's kind of increasing at a significant rate is implementing processes. Some things that are in there, you can't check the box and say we're done, but you can say we have done this thing and we're going to keep doing this thing because it supports the vital nature of what we do. Overall, the things you are seeing here are core to what our staff does every day. And having the plan just keeps us focused and helps us try and get to the next step in some areas. I love this picture. I love all the pictures in here. I had a fun time working with staff to gather and collect them. But it just shows you how many different kinds of folks come out to our events and get involved with things. This is the multicultural motherhood event. I just love saying it too. The welcoming inclusive section is really about building community and partnerships, and it really makes it so everyone can play. The big jump in reporting here this year is that we implemented a lot more processes and we decreased things we have not yet started. The kind of core, really important piece of this that's ongoing, but it's been a focus, is the district-wide equity strategy. And that really guides a lot of our efforts with diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging. And it really helps us approach it in a thoughtful, respectful, and adaptive way. The program changes each year based on what staff see as an important need. And it's really exciting to know the 127 events happened with about 7,000 community members. So lots going on and continues to go on. I think that's a really important thing to note. We're never done, but we're continuing to offer service. Play for Everyone is very much in motion, as you can see here. They've started everything, and that's really cool. Play for Everyone represents the idea of everybody plays. How do we get and empower folks to participate in programs and activities? And that's going to be different for everybody. A big part of getting stuff done in this category this year included partnerships. And I always like to think about these things in different ways. And like, I love the picture here because this is a teen kind of hangout area at Abbey Creek Park. And we've not thought about teens in some cases unless they're involved in really active things. In other cases, like, teens need somewhere to go. This is a neat opportunity for them. Kind of looking ahead for Play for Everyone for this year, they're working on key performance indicators or updating them. They have some now, but they're really trying to tighten those up. And I kind of think about it as, how do you put your head and your heart together to get something important done? Accessible and safe is our next category, and that reflects the ways we maintain and replace facilities so that people can safely access parks and facilities. This section includes a broad spectrum of things, including the development of the facility functional plan, our new headquarters building, and a lion's share of the effort here really goes into the super important but easy to overlook work of daily maintenance on parks, trails, facilities. This picture we have here is a curious picture, but it's an important one. He's checking the depth of the wood chips to make sure they are safe for kids on the playground. Environmental stewardship has a lot of different things in it, which represents why the numbers here are so split. In some cases, staff are just putting things into motion. In other cases, especially in the not started category, we just have a lot of things that we're still trying to get to. This section includes all the things we do in natural areas and trails, but it also includes sustainable operations. So it's sort of multifaceted. Under natural resource stewardship, there were things with turtles and frogs and pine tree health, wildfire, and of course, all the things that relate to people here. One of my favorite things that I wish I was involved with, I only got to watch it, was the Superheroes of Nature program, which took place at the Tualatin Hills Nature Center, and it was in Spanish. And it was in Spanish, it's the Fiesta de Superheroes de la Naturaleza. And it was just great. So much enthusiasm on the part of the staff going into this. I've seldom seen them this excited about a new event. And the picture doesn't look exciting. And part of our sustainable operations piece is it doesn't have to be fabulously different. It has to be more efficient and better for the environment. And here we have LED lights that are new on the outside of the Nature Center. All right. This section is really, it's similar to one I talked about a few minutes ago, but it's much more focused on what are we doing internally to make an equitable workplace and to create an inclusive public planning process. One thing that's different from the original plan that we added in this year was the B belonging onto the end of this section. A big focus for the group this year was, or for the section, was on affinity groups. We have quite a few of them now in the district. They are a growing way for employees to feel engaged and kind of voice their opinions about things. And a big focus for our year coming up is just more training, especially in the areas of diversity and inclusion for staff, to make sure that both new staff are brought on board, as well as existing staff are kind of reminded of why are we doing this? How do we do it in the best possible way? And I don't know who took this picture, Lulu, but I just love the way everyone looks so excited to be working together on this thing. Sometimes when you make people pose for a picture, they look very square, and these folks just look excited to be there. Technology and innovation is a quiet one, but it's also really important to how the district is able to carry out all the things that we do. It prioritizes technology to streamline processes and let us better serve the community. A huge part of this, and I love the drawing they submitted, is that our new website is under construction. We're expecting it to go live this winter. And behind the scenes, staff are all updating and organizing content on that web page. And that's going to be fun to see. We also have an asset management software program that we're actively researching and starting to interview vendors for. That hopefully will go live this winter, but definitely this fiscal year. That'll help us manage all the physical things that we own outside of daily maintenance. Financial sustainability. They are continuing to make progress in several of the areas, and in particular, the in-process piece is one that's really important here. Financial sustainability, of course, just lets us continue to do what we're supposed to do in the long term. Staff continue to look at ways to maximize the use of existing funds. I know there was a workshop that took place, and staff are working on several new cost recovery models. And that's what those illustrations are on the side. I know this all sounds like a lot, so I'm going to pause here and let you read for a moment of these are some of the directions we're going in the year ahead. So the purpose of this report is to help you all get a big picture sense of where the district is as far as reaching strategic plan goals as you start to work on your retreat later on in the month and as we start to move into budget season. And so that concludes my report. I know you got a little bit more detail in the written version, but I'm happy to answer questions or any thoughts that you have about things that might be useful for you to see in future years.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. Anyone want to lead off with any comments or questions at this point? I think you're okay.
I'm happy to dive in.
Thank you, Miles.
So just a few comments and then a couple of questions that might be a little too in the weeds that we can talk about later if they are. With the welcoming and inclusive, I was just noting all of the different partnerships that we have. And that is awesome. It is really cool to see just how many different organizations in our community. It shows the intentionality of our organization, of our community, of wanting to make sure that everyone feels seen and belonged. And so just a massive kudos to the team on the continued great work that's happening in that space. It makes me emotional and I love it. So thank you so much. Couple other quick things for me. Love that the climate action plan is part of the environmental stewardship next steps. This was the bit of a more in-depth, maybe in the weeds piece here. The affinity groups, I love that. That's super exciting. It's one of the things I think just does a great job of, in the same vein of what I had just said, but doing that internally with our team, making those folks feel seen and recognized. I have a couple of questions in terms of the accessibility of the affinity groups. Do they usually occur during like the workday? Like, what is the timing and like the space accessibility and ability for people to actually engage? I know that it's still very early on in getting these up and running, but I'm just being thoughtful of those pieces.
I'm very proud of my colleagues, and I'm giving this report in general on their behalf, but they are the experts on the details.
Come on down, Lulu.
So it's all great news. Affinity groups meet monthly. At the moment, we have 3 affinity groups, and it's with paid time. So staff can join, and also leadership of those affinity groups get additional hours of paid time so they can organize their monthly meetings or whatever they have happening next. So that's always exciting.
That is great news. Thank you so much for sharing. I love to hear that. Very happy about that. And then just the last comment is, it is always great to see the efforts that are being done in grant work to already have, I guess, I keep forgetting we're so close to the end of the year, but to be clear, $10 million nearly in grants is something to be extremely proud about. And so I'm very thankful for you all, and just keep up the amazing work. It's wonderful to see vision in action, and I'm so thankful.
Great, thank you, Miles. Anybody else?
I had a question. When you say complete new key performance measures for like the play for everyone, I guess how do you measure that or ensure that we are creating spaces for everyone and that we're not missing certain groups or anything like that? Is there like a strategy we have?
So that's our question too. Our current indicators are very much driven on attendance and program hours. But NRPA actually has some different standards. So that is the work we're doing, is are we using the right measurements? Does it capture the work that we are actually doing? And does it tell the story we needed to tell us to move us in the right direction? So we are completely ripping everything back and starting from ground zero to ask the important questions to make sure we end up where we're going to get. It's going to take us some time, but we have staff very excited about that work.
I love it. Thank you. And then I just want to call, and I mean, all of it is great, but I am a big proponent of training. And so I just want to thank the district and to continue to put DEI, A, and now B in the forefront of all of our staff. And just that is, I think, the beating heart of why we're so successful. And so I'm just really glad that that was called out. So I wanted to give you guys kudos for that.
Cute, yeah. Got anything from your end?
I just loved this work. I haven't taken out my laptop, but that's where I was reading through all of that. But I agree with Tia on the B part, that because I work in corporate, I don't see the B anywhere included. So I thought that was a big change for me as I was reading through it. And I just loved how like the belonging and, just being part of something bigger, not just as part of a job, but like part of a community, really resonated with me. And thank you. Really good work. So I should look over there. Really great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradnya. First of all, I also love the photos that you all do on these. I saw the wood chip guy and I was like, oh, Instagram story, boom, I think these photos, when you explain them, tell such a story about the work. So I really do love that. For those of you who may have watched the show Pee-wee's Playhouse growing up, as I did, process is the word of the day. So we don't have to scream real loud, but it's what we've been talking about throughout this whole meeting. And it's not easy when there's pressure to move and deliver. So I struggle as a professional with doing things like a strategic plan, and because I'm usually just moving too quick to plan, which is a death knell, right? So this is great, just seeing that you all are taking on more and more things. You're building out the processes so that you're able to replicate the work with those same high standards each and every year. So it's not always the most enjoyable work sometimes because of the pressure to knock something out quickly, but much respect. So process. I also had a note on the DEIB. I think, obviously lots and lots has changed in how America looks at this work and thinks about it. And I think the district is not a monolith. It has all kinds of point of views and perspectives on the world. And I think just I'm sure you all take a thoughtful approach of this, and I think that eyes on the prize, that it's ultimately to connect people and make people empower everyone to have a productive voice into district programming and success. And I think you all have shown that over and over again in the years I've been on the board of the success stories that start with someone feeling like they're part of something and they belong and their voice matters. And so I really appreciate that work. And I think it has changed significantly from when I was at Portland Community College taking these classes in 2020, 2019. And I hope that it does change because these things, to be effective, have to keep evolving and growing with the organization. So, and the world around it. So thank you all very much for this work. Yes, please.
So one thing that I should have called out at the beginning was technology. When I was campaigning, a lot of people asked about the technology piece and their actually user experience with our websites. And because I work in technology, I know how hard it is to actually adapt to a new technology, not just internally, but also manage that change for our customers. So I know the team has been working really hard on getting that up and running. And it's a lot of work like behind the screens, but it's also a lot of work to bring our customers on board. So really appreciate all the work. Thank you.
A valid comment from your wheelhouse. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us along to the general manager's report. Holly, you are first up. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay. I have the privilege of getting to share some really good news with y'all this evening. So, as you know, we recently did a community survey. The survey was primarily done to understand the public. And when I say the public, I mean registered voters, priorities, support, and interest in a potential bond measure in May of 2026. So we surveyed 400 people. This is like a really nerdy thing, but I took a class in grad school and you just need to poll 400 people. And it is true. Any community in the United States, it is 400 people. And anyone who tries to sell you on more, don't listen to them. 400 is the magic number. That's one of the things I actually evaluate pollsters on. So anyways, we did polling in mid-September. If you go up to 600, it only changes that margin of error to 4.6. The statistical difference in the information from the poll is worth the economic cost. So nerdy geek, I don't even know why I went there. You might have noticed if you heard from people, oh, your survey was longer. Surveys are getting longer. And the reason is because most people take them on their phones and it's really easy to move through them quicker. And so the push is to ask a few more questions. So while people squawk and say it's annoying, we're actually able to ask a few more questions and get more information because we're all swiping on our phones anyways. So our poll was out in the field mid last month. And what did we find out? We found out voters continue to be very satisfied with THPRD. Satisfaction was 77%. When we polled in 23 for the 24 levy, it was 76%. So virtually the same. I can tell you that city county governments right now would be like doing a happy dance if they were in the 60s, and most people have sunk into the 50s. Not people, local governments. And that has changed over time as trust has gotten lower and lower. So the fact that 77% of the people we serve, registered voters, are very satisfied with us is incredible numbers in this day and age. Very rare for public agencies. Initial support for the bond measure is incredibly strong. And when I say initial, I literally mean initial. Before we give you any information about the why, any of our arguments about, here's what it will fund, here's what it will do, before we even tell you how much it's going to be, we just ask you the 20-word question that would be on the ballot title. 3 out of 5 registered voters say, yeah, I would support that. That is incredibly strong support. I clicked twice. I gotta not click that fast. Next point is the focus on repairs and replacement that the bond measure approach is taking absolutely aligns with what voters want to invest in. So I'm going to go back and say once again, thank you, Levy Task Force, for planting this seed in our head. They were absolutely representative of the community at large, and their advice was right on. Another really interesting point when you get into the crosstabs, if there was a sector of voters that we do a little bit less well with consistently, they are going to be older, they're going to be male, they're going to be Republican. And they like this message. They go up through the journey with us, and we capture more of those voters based on this message. So our top messages for the bond are not a surprise. And in some ways, I feel like my presentation might be boring. You're going to be like, you keep repeating yourself. Well, it's because the answers are so consistent and so loud and clear that people really appreciate that it is maintenance-based, that it is safety-based, and that we're maintaining and taking care of what we've built before we're going to do more, and that it's not a new tax, that it's a continuation. Okay. The final point on this slide that I want to make is that messaging matters. We know these are our key messages, and while our initial support is very strong, we also see from the way the poll is orchestrated that when people are exposed to the messaging, that support grows. And Doug would kill me if I didn't remind everyone of what happened in 2008, right? We had strong polling numbers. We can't fight the economy. The economy did what it did, and we needed every single one of those votes in the end to squeak over. So, even where we're at today, this is really good, but it tells us work your public messaging campaign, because that will drive a difference, and probably about an 11 to 12 point difference in the election outcome. So what are the messaging recommendations? What is our blueprint for success? No surprises here. Focus on repair and replacement of existing facilities, parks, and amenities. Talk about that, not the new. Educate the public on that it is a renewal. That is a top message, and really emphasize safety and maintenance. That will secure the support among registered voters. So those are our key messages. This slide is the actual numbers that came in on the initial question. And so again, I'll explain this on the next slide, but that initial question, this is the 3 out of 5, 62% said yes. Once they got a little bit more information about it, that jumped to 70% said that they would support it. What do I mean by a little bit more information? The first example, they got just the 20-word title that would appear on their ballot. So if you're thinking like to your voting days. You see the you see the caption, you see the title, that's it. But if you had your voter's pamphlet in front of you and you were looking at the summary statement in front of it, that's the 175 words that allows public agencies to give a greater description. This is an example that we had in the poll of what a summary statement could look like. It gives information about continuing that same rate. What is that rate? 37 cents per thousand. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means this much on a home in a year, this much per month. So with that greater information, you can see the results jump to 70%. Again, incredibly supportive information. We did ask voters what their top funding priorities are. Now, I always like to ground truth this in understanding like how we use and how we operationalize this information. What it tells me from a messaging perspective is what to emphasize about what the bond measure will do for the community, right? The bond measure is going to do 100 things. There's going to be a ton of projects in there, but this tells us what will resonate the most in talking to the public about what it will do for the community. And you can see repairing park buildings, facilities, and community centers is a top priority. Repairing aging trails and addressing safety concerns, a top priority. Security systems, fire suppression systems, aging roof heating and cooling systems. Things get a little dense, but you get the picture. You've got to explain what these things are so you can see how we in communications will pull these out, will be what descriptions do we lead with, what pictures do we lead with, what stories do we tell. If you think back to the levee, all the different posters that we put in the buildings, that was all the architecture around that was tied to the polling to tell us what imagery, what services to emphasize. In this case, will be what bond projects, bond activities to emphasize based on this information. As I've said before, again, I apologize for the redundancy here. Voters showed an overwhelming support for replacement and repair. We gave an example at the time of the poll saying maybe 75% would go to replacement repair. And what we heard from the voters is right out of the gate, half the people said, yep, that makes sense, I like it. 29% said, why don't you put more into repairs? Only 6% said, do more new, right? So that's almost the biggest story of all, right? So between the 52 and the 29, there's a discussion about what that ratio should be, but there's no doubt where the public's emphasis and push for their bond measure is, which again is so reaffirming that that is the approach that the levy task force pushed for and what staff have taken on in developing the bond package, really consistent. And 12%, not sure. I love people who say that, because sometimes people ask you questions, you're like, I don't know. And I love that answer. It's so honest. We do ask the public about what their priorities are for services. This is one of those intro questions that you're asking when you're orienting them to the poll and what THPRD does. What this does for me as well is helps on the communication and the priorities that we talk about. But you can see parks, natural areas, trails, the sports fields, the courts, all incredibly important. I'd like to highlight the senior center, 82%, incredibly important to the public. But you can see all of those are up 70% or above. Very important services to the public. We did ask folks what their concerns were. And again, this was one of those intro questions, and we always like to look at this because we like to think about what could be addressed through the bond measure that people are expressing as concerns. One thing that really stood out was visible homelessness in parks, which is something, safety services is in the communications division. So that's definitely something we are addressing and seeing more and more of. The one thing I want to call out on this slide is the call out box that talks about safety concerns. And when we looked at the cross tabs, one thing we found is that safety concerns spiked higher for people of color, people who are renters, people of low income, and, you know, from a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, maybe feeling more insecure in general. And to me, that resonated with what we heard from the Equity and Engagement Advisory Committee when we updated our equity, inclusion and belonging statement. Remember, their advice was please add safety into this. And so, you know, I'm seeing these very, from a both strictly analytical, substantive level here to the feedback we've gotten from the public in other ways. That's an important theme that's coming out, and it's definitely coming out from populations that are feeling particularly targeted, and that's something I think we should really pay attention to. Doug always talks about the restroom facilities. I don't think there's a surprise there. The cleanliness, keeping them up, having more, having hard restrooms versus the portables, that sort of thing. So I don't think there's great surprises here, but I do think the fact that homelessness is such a top concern and such high, and the safety issue are really interesting things to pay attention. So in the messaging component, we go through and we articulated examples of what we thought our best safety argument would be. And it was wonky and it was wordy, but we're testing our ways we're communicating this and seeing how that pops with people. And what we found is that the safety message was the number one, maintaining what we've taken care of was number two, protecting green spaces was number three. Now, when I say that, they're all incredibly high, but I found it fascinating that those messages actually popped a little louder, tiny little bit, than even the replacement bond. Isn't that interesting? Funding, that one is a little more esoteric. We do an argument to explain that how capital projects are funded in government agencies traditionally, like this is the way this is done. And then the accountability argument, it's one that's been around since dinosaur time in local government, and it's talking about having an oversight committee and public involvement to watch the process moving forward. Those types of statements really matter to a particular slice of the audience, and we tested to see if that was still true. This is the final and really a fascinating slide to me. What this is we ask the question then a third time. Now that you've heard all the messaging, you've heard everything, how likely are you to support this? And you can see that the final number is 72%. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this work a really long time. I've never started a measure with these types of numbers being this high and this strong. So this is incredibly, I mean, just take a deep moment of gratitude because these are incredibly positive and optimistic numbers for the district. And in talking to the polling firm, we had the same kind of read on this. It also tells us unequivocally that 70 to 72 range is absolutely our ceiling, right? I went back and looked because I thought I might get asked this question. In the 2023 poll, these numbers, the 62, the 70, the 72, they were 44 instead of 62, 55 instead of 70, and 60 instead of 72. So you can see there is a huge base of support for the bond measure out of the gate that we didn't have that same luxury with the levy. And our final vote came in within that 4% margin of 56.85. So if history continues, I would expect our final number to land somewhere around 70%, give or take 4% on this track. And that is absolutely incredible. So, I wanted to also give you a quick recap of the bond task force meeting. They met and had their second meeting. We answered some questions that they had. They had questions about, did we need to add in funding for a whole new facility? And we addressed through our discussion, and we laid out kind of the number of facilities we have compared to other agencies. We went over our capital replacement needs and backlog. And we ended up having them solidly understand why this bond is focused on replacement and repair and not a new facility. Spoiler alert, they might end up giving us a fourth recommendation. So remember the levy task force, we asked 3 questions, they gave us 4 recommendations. So we said you could do the same thing. If we don't address a new facility in this bond measure, you could certainly leave us with a recommendation of what your thoughts are for our future. And that's helpful to get their perspective because they're spending time looking under the hood of all of these issues. We also had some follow-up discussion with them on questions that they had. They got a lot of boring lecturing from me about taxation history in the state of Oregon, and Jared and others. And then we went over the bond categories with them as well. So meeting went very well. Final thing on the polling community survey information is it gives us a great roadmap. It's incredibly encouraging. If I don't seem like super rah-rah, it's because I'm still thinking about all the work to do. And this is not a check you can cash at the bank. It is a moment of gratitude, appreciation, and all of this information tells us what our key messages need to be and informs what needs to be an amazing public information campaign. These numbers don't mean rest and coast. They mean work the plan, stay targeted, and don't give up. So I was over there doing a little bit of math, and this election is going to be on May 19th. That's 223 days away. And when I back that up, and I think about when implementation time is for that public information campaign, the team is going to be spending about 139 days active in the public information campaign, counting from January through May. And that means we have 84 days until we get there. And the last 59 of those days are exhausting and insane. So, this is the calm before the storm and is going to take a ton of work in those last 139 days to get us over the finish line where we want to go. But all the signs on the highway say you got the right plan, you did it the right way, and go work it. And hopefully the voters will be there with you.
Thank you, Holly. Go ahead, Pranya.
This is very promising. I love seeing these numbers, and I'm glad you pulled up like some of the previous numbers so then we could do a comparison. And that seemed like a significant 8 to 10% jump in each of the categories. So I love seeing that. So my question to you is, I know you said January, but I think from now till January, there is still going to be a lot of work that's going to happen to get us ready for that. So from a campaigning standpoint, and maybe you don't have it today, but is there some sort of like a roadmap that says we are going to do X in this last quarter, we are going to do this in the first quarter, and so on and so forth? I would love to see that.
You got it. Yeah. The problem with me too is a lot of it's up in here and, getting it down on paper. What I will say is this is always a really tricky time for me because I'll say back, I can't deliver the public information campaign materials and all of that work until the board refers it to the voters and we know what it is, right? You've got to know. Right now I know I'm selling a car. I just don't know what the model is, the year, the color, what it looks like, and what the specifics are. So we've got to get through the bond task force. We've got to get the recommendation from the bond task force. I welcome that process. We've got 2 more meetings to go. Bruce, Aisha, and the team have a great game plan for the next one. We're going to go deep under the hood of each one of those bond categories. But the goal is to conclude the bond task force process in November, have the bond task force come to the board at their December meeting, present their recommendation, and if I got my way, which I don't always get my way, the board would consider the referral in December and then That's when we know exactly what it is. And we've got January, February to do all the setup for the public information campaign. And then we're working it hard those last 3 months. And when I mean the setup, we're designing all the marketing materials. We're printing and getting everything done. We're setting up all our presentations, our speaking engagements, our tabling opportunities. For the levy, I think we did 129 meetings, events, activities, 850 yard signs, posters in every facility. So we need about 60 days to get all that legwork done. And then the last 90, and I know people are like, do it earlier. Trust me, by the last 90, people are like, Holly, I've seen you 6 times in the last 2 weeks. Enough, we get it. So it really, it's a lot at the end, but a lot of work to get prepped for it.
Thank you for all of that. I know it's a huge heavy lift on top of everything else. So really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Dia?
I had a question about safety because it's
Mhm.
such a main message that it was surprising to me how it popped up as a top priority. But in my head, when we were first talking about safety, I was thinking just like facility and talking about like the active shooter and all like those kinds of changes, and like fire suppression, and we talked about security and stuff. But based on this THPRD concern, I feel like this safety concern is more for like personal safety almost, but this bond wouldn't be, it's structural, right? It can't be used for like increased safety services and all of that kind of stuff, correct?
Right. In the polling, we gave examples of safety improvements. So we talk about fixing broken equipment. We talk about fixing broken playgrounds. You can think about some of the experiences people have had out in the field that where accidents, injuries have occurred. We're doing the work to prevent all of that. We've got decaying boardwalks that are falling apart. We've got trails that we can show you pictures of that are, really discombobulated. That's not the right word, but it's what popped out of my mouth right now. We've got turf that's coming up and it is an ankle biting moment. So we've got lots of examples of safety in that way out in the land portion of what we manage. And then we talk about safety in terms of the buildings. One of the biggest concerns that I personally have with safety services in our division is our building entrances and making sure that we are taking approach similar to schools of better having secured entrances, knowing who are in our buildings, having eyes on people, knowing like, oh, what are you here for? Let's get you there. But that's going to take physical changes to our buildings that are going to be expensive. What it allows us to do, though, is address the safety concern and accessibility concerns at hopefully the same time and cover a couple of things at once. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think that when we talk about safety, we've got to describe it in the way that we described it in the poll so that people, you're right, that it could mean different things to different people.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Miles, anything? Miles is good. I think I am good. This is a great foundation, and I appreciate your experienced and thoughtful process in all of this, Holly. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to Leilani Garcia to talk about our annual grant report. Thank you for joining us.
There we go. Hello, can
Yep.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leilani Garcia. I'm a grants administrator. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to present the annual grant report for fiscal year 25. So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'll share a snapshot of this year's grant activity. I'll highlight several impactful projects funded through grants and then share a look at what's ahead for fiscal year 26. But first, we're going to start out by looking at grants by the numbers. So in FY25, 22 grant applications were submitted, requesting $43.6 million. THPRD was awarded $9.9 million, which is a $3.3 million increase in grant awards over the previous fiscal year. 11 grants were declined, and at the end of FY25, there were 4 grants pending decision. Currently, staff are managing 26 grant-funded projects totaling more than $27.9 million. The first project I'd like to highlight is the Commonwealth Lake Park Improvement Project funded by Metro's local share program. This $1.3 million award will fund the installation of an ADA parking stall at the park off Butner Road, the replacement of a pedestrian bridge and weir, and the repavement of about 50 feet of asphalt trail leading up to the bridge. As you know, Commonwealth Lake is a beloved community space, and this project ensures the space remains safe and accessible for all of its users. The next project I'll highlight is the Soxaka All Ages Play Amenities Project. This project is funded through Metro's Nature in Neighborhoods Capital Grant. Soxaka Park is a new neighborhood park currently under development in North Bethany. This space takes advantage of the natural areas that borders the south of the park along Bethany Creek. And this park is a nature-based, nature play-focused park. The $300,000 award supports the design and installation of nature-based play features for children and adults alike, creating an inclusive space that connects people to nature through play. Our third highlight is the Beaverton Creek Trail Project, which received just over $1 million in regional flexible funds from Metro. This funding supplements previously awarded grants totaling $6.5 million to complete the construction of the 1.5-mile, 12-foot wide segment of the trail. The project includes paving, bridges, boardwalks, lighting, right-of-way improvements, environmental mitigation, bicycle and pedestrian amenities, and site furnishings. The final grant project I'd like to highlight is the Revolutionary War Memorial Project. This project is funded by the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department through its Veterans and War Memorial Grant. THPRD was awarded $61,000 towards the construction of a memorial honoring veterans from the American Revolution. The memorial will be installed at the Veterans Memorial Park and will consist of 3 granite panels inscribed with text and glass art images and 3 marble benches. This project is being completed in collaboration with the American Legion Post number 124, the Lewis and Clark chapter of the Sons of American Revolution, and the city of Beaverton. So in FY25, we focused on pursuing funding for the construction of the West Side Trail pedestrian and bicycle bridge over Highway 26. To date, we've submitted $34 million in grant applications to support the project, and as of today, we've secured half of the total funding needed. The bridge will be a transformative regional connection linking over 25 miles of trail, and it will serve as a visible symbol of our community's investment in safe, active transportation. In addition to capital projects, the district pursued $349,000 in program funding to continue and expand equity-driven youth initiatives such as the Black and Green Program, Diversify, Junior Lifeguard, Nature Education Workforce Training, or the NEWT program, and then the RISE Youth Leadership programs. These programs help youth build leadership skills, connect with nature, and explore future careers. They directly support our mission to make parks and recreation accessible and inclusive for all. Upon reflection of fiscal year 25, key trends and challenges are clear. We continue to see strong support for capital projects with measurable community benefit. And then in terms of community and equity-based program grants, there was a marked shift in the funding climate. Many grant programs were suspended, reduced, or restructured, which resulted in a significant increase in competition as a result of a decrease in available funding. So looking ahead in fiscal year 26, we'll focus on 3 strategic priorities. We'll continue to pursue funding for the construction of the West Side Trail pedestrian bicycle bridge. We'll also work with the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation to adapt our strategy in pursuit of foundation grants. And then we'll explore multi-year grant opportunities to sustain key recreation and community programs. And these efforts, we hope will ensure THPRD continues to leverage these external resources to advance our long-term goals and ultimately to meet our mission to serve our diverse community. So in closing, I just want to express my sincere appreciation to the board, the leadership team, district staff, and our community partners for your continued support of THPRD's grant efforts. Truly, our collective success is a reflection of this partnership, and I look forward to what we'll accomplish together in the year ahead. So I just want to thank you, and this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions you have about the report.
Okay, thank you, Leilani. Nice job. Comments, questions? Seeing none?
I will just express
Yep.
a ton of gratitude to all staff because I know this is just a team effort and
Yes, definitely.
Leilani, you're at the helm of it. So it's just amazing. I remember kind of in the beginning when I came on and we are talking about like SDC waivers and we're like, are we going to find enough grant to cover the SDC waivers? And every year, like it just gets blown out of the water and gets better and better. And you talked about decreased availability and increased competition, yet I swear every time we see this number, it like gets bigger and bigger. So I just want to congratulate you guys and congratulate the district because people recognize our work and we come through and you utilize money really well, I feel like. And so that in turn shows that we're dependable and we're doing the right things with the grant money. So I just want to give you guys a big kudos for everything you do for all of us and all the things that you've made possible for the district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Agreed. Oh, go ahead, Miles.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what I said earlier. Yeah, incredible work. So thankful for everything that you've done, Leilani. And then also just like everything that everyone involved in this process has completed. It matters. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just had a little question. As far as the West Side Trail bridge, so we're do any of the grants that we've received thus far, is there any sort of like conditions or timing or something that we have to, yeah, or anything like that?
Yes, when we developed our funding plan for the construction of the bridge, we looked at timing of the grant. So for each grant that we applied to, we looked at when the award was going to be given, the timeline for execution, and then also project completion date. So we kind of timed it all out so that to ensure that the grants that we were awarded would align with the actual construction plan, I guess that's what I would say. Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
If I could add as well, there will be a component of the construction costs sunk within the bond as well. So it may not be over the hump, but it will certainly be a healthy component because I think that timing sequence is obviously really critical. I do want to call out a couple items that this is another great example of what we try to do on the leadership team is simply stay out of Leilani's way. She's really good at what she does. And secondarily, one of the few times that I've asked IS for anything is one of those shortcut commands, because I end up with the email that says, you've won. And I just shortcut the command to send it Leilani's way so she can deal with the official stuff that has to get done.
Great. Thank you, Doug. And then I just wanted to say, I noticed the bullet about partnering with the Park Foundation, and I just think as some of the grant environment, is not fully within our control, and no matter how hard you work, it may not, things may be constrained, and the things that we can apply for are different, depending on things far beyond this room and this community. So that's where I think, again, I harp on it over and over, but having kind of a symbiotic relationship with a private fundraising arm that can help us when there's a lack of opportunity in other areas. So thank you for your work there and the relationship that you have built and are building with the foundation. So I think that's huge. So, okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate it. And Peter Swinton, you are up next. Anchor leg.
I'm Nicole Paulson, Planning Supervisor here at the district, and I'm here with Peter to go over our annual affordable housing update. Take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm here to present the 24-25 fiscal year affordable housing report. I'd like to note that the image you see on your screen here is the Reach El Monica Station project. It's a project that we supported in fiscal year 23-24, and it's going to show up again right here. It's just down the street on 170th. You might have passed it coming in, but Over on the right-hand side there, you can see Board President Moreno breaking ground. So these affordable housing waivers have real impact, and they are creating units that families will use in our community. So it's really exciting to see. THPRD charges parks system development charges on development within the district to increase the capacity of THPRD's parks, trails, and natural areas so that they can accommodate population growth that comes with that new development. This ensures that new people living and working in THPRD's district have access to high quality parks and other recreation amenities without compromising current services. Despite the need to collect SDCs, we recognize that our community's need for affordable housing is at odds with market forces that make it more profitable to develop market rate housing. So to incentivize the production of affordable housing, THPRD waives SDCs through its affordable housing SDC waiver policy. Established through Resolution 2020-24 in the year 2020, THPRD's affordable housing waiver policy created a pool of up to 632 affordable housing waivers. 225 of those were required to be reserved for deeply affordable units, meaning those restricted to families earning 30% or less than median family income. This policy directs staff to provide a 100% waiver on deeply affordable units and a 50% SDC waiver on affordable units, which are those restricted to tenants earning between 31 and 60% of median family income. Among other requirements, developers are required to record a deed restriction that ensures that these housing units will remain affordable for the next 60 years. Resolution 2020-24 also called on staff to provide annual updates, which we are here to deliver this evening. And last year's annual update in October identified an increasing potential of triggering the affordable housing waivers sunset provisions. We were getting pretty close to some of the waiver caps included within the policy. So at the board's request, staff brought back policy options that were discussed in February of 2025. And based on the board's direction in April, staff brought Resolution 2025-05, and which the board adopted, increasing the waiver cap to 900 and maintaining that 225 unit deeply affordable set aside. This eliminated the risk that the policy would sunset due to lack of waivers. Although I would be remiss if I didn't note that THPRD's upcoming SDC methodology update, something that we're required to do every 5 years, does trigger one of the sunset policy provisions. So staff will come back to the board throughout that methodology update process to give the board options on how to continue that affordable housing policy. Getting into tonight's update, I'd like to start by looking at progress on affordable housing, on the affordable housing waiver program since 2020. Of Resolution 2025-05's 900 unit cap, of which 225 waivers are reserved for those deeply affordable units. Staff are tracking progress towards those unit caps. And we've provided over $2.5 million in affordable housing SDC waivers for 457 affordable units, which represents approximately 49% of the overall unit cap from the policy. Of those 457 units, 136 serve families occupying deeply affordable units, roughly 60% of that 225 unit set aside. And 321 of the 457 units serve families residing in affordable units, representing approximately 48% of the waivers in that 31 to 60% category. THPRD is going to be able to provide another 443 affordable housing waivers before reaching the policy cap. And of that 443, 89 of those must be reserved for deeply affordable units, leaving 354 available to support families in affordable units. At current rates, staff do not anticipate that we'll reach that cap within the next 5 years. But we will bring those policy options to you as we go through that methodology update process. This fiscal year, staff anticipate completing an affordable housing SDC waiver agreement for the Meadowlark project, which is expected to build 104 senior apartments, all of which are affordable, and a 54-unit Head Start early childhood education facility. Developed in partnership with the Community Partners for Affordable Housing, known as SEPA. 69 of the Meadowlark Place units are expected to target senior residents in need of deeply affordable units, and 35 are expected to be allocated to senior residents in need of those affordable units in the 31 to 60% category. The affordable housing waivers for this project are valued at almost $900,000. This project's located at the intersection of Southwest 5th Street and Hall Boulevard, right across the street from City Library. Meadowlark is expected to provide 9 studio apartments and 95 one-bedroom senior apartments. The development has really good access to public transportation. It's within the downtown boundary from the Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan that we worked on and you all adopted with the city of Beaverton. It's approximately 8 blocks from the Beaverton Transit Center and a 5-minute walk from the Elsie Stir Center. It's also across the street from City Park. So in this past fiscal year, THPRD did not receive any affordable housing waiver requests in time for those to be issued in the previous fiscal year. The drop in waiver requests corresponds to what staff have seen and heard from our partners, that state and metro funds that support affordable housing had been fully allocated, leaving fewer funds available to support new projects like this. Metro and partner jurisdictions are working to fill that gap, and through projects like Metro's Regional Housing Coordination Strategy and the City of Beaverton's Middle Housing Generation Program. So we expect there to be more resources out there, but that is we feel that was likely responsible for some of the dip that we saw in those requests. In the current fiscal year, we're going to continue to actively work with SEPA to support the Meadowlark Place project and anticipate issuing that almost $900,000 in waiver in this fiscal year to support that development. We recognize that those SDC waivers reduce the resources that we would use to increase the capacity of our park system to handle those new residents of the development. So to try to solve for this, THPRD seeks grants to ensure excellent parks, trails, and natural areas for all current and future residents, and tracks how much funding we need to offset the impact of waivers. As you just heard, Leilani is crushing it. So the district was awarded almost $10 million in grants from 7 applications in the past fiscal year. We're still waiting on 4 more decisions to be made. But that more than offsets what the affordable housing waivers we've issued over the entire lifetime of the program. So it's really exciting. And that is where I'll leave it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all this evening. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Nicole and Peter. I will open it up to the left, to the right. And for Tia, Pranya, please.
No questions, but really good update. Thank you. This is my first time seeing it. So really appreciate all the good information and the favors. Yeah, and you're right. You're crushing it.
Miles, anything? Yeah, this is great. I think about, and I have to ask, this is my 5th year. I mean, Doug, I mean, when did this start being a conversation for when did we start having like affordable housing updates? Was it just, this isn't stuff we were doing, 10 years ago for sure,
No,
right?
no.
So, it's just
You know, the
Amazing to see.
compliment, we might as well call her out, is Felicita Monteblanco. But several of you were on the board in the adoption process, and most of you were on the board in the extension process. You know, this is, I think this is the acknowledgement of what we can do as a community. We do very little, actually, the Park District on our own. We are dependent on our partnerships and developing those, whether they be Metro, Washington County, City of Beaverton, some of our local special districts as well. But the reality is, on the housing side particularly, the need is obvious, and our opportunity and ability to work with others. And thankfully, the grant process, you know, is really, it's the ultimate complement to doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I heard you say, Peter, right, that this, you know, doing this, there is a risk involved in that it, you know, and something that the board preceding me and you all as staff have had to figure out a way to do this. So I am just, I think as we ponder the future and of other things that we do in our community, I mean, I think there's just being able to continuously point to this as something that we've pulled off and is making an impact, and we see all these facilities, and I would like for us to get our full credit when we do participate in one of these, which you know, sometimes we haven't always been as recognized, and it's not about that per se, but I do think because of the risk that and the energy and the effort that everyone does, I think that's important, and I don't know if we're always seen for the role that we have there. So, if we get more of those, if I'm lucky enough to have a shovel, I promise to wear a safety helmet next time. But
Yeah.
I was wearing a THPRD hat, and I didn't want to remove that.
That's right. That's right. I failed to acknowledge as well, because I think Mayor Beatty, at the time, she was not Mayor Beatty, she was counselor. She was an influencer in this process, and I think, you know, she continues on that forefront of it. It does take some level of risk to enter in these kind of projects and programs, and I think with the confidence of having your elected officials behind you, these kind of things can work.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Anything else for the good of the order? Any unhinged rants I missed? No. Okay, let's get out of here then. This meeting is adjourned.